slightly wider than hip width apart, and let's take some double shoulder rolls to begin. So lifting up out of the hips, and then let's turn this into some singles. So because we're only moving the shoulders on their own, try and keep the hips fairly still. Great, let's move that into elbow circles, going backwards. So now add in a bit of a shift from front to back with the rib cage. Get everything moving. Legs are staying straight, pelvis is fairly neutral. And then some single elbow circles backwards, all going backwards. And I'm just allowing my hips to go a little bit this time. Let's take that movement forwards as well. Quite like going forwards, and see if you can sort of get that sense of your the air being squeezed out of the lungs a little bit as you go from side to side. I'm just going to step slightly forwards, then we've got double whole arm circles. Just nice and relaxed. Maybe just close your eyes. Think of lengthening the spine. Don't try and overdo it. Don't try and push those arms. Just let the elbows be relaxed. Fantastic. And then we've got backstroke swimming. Now, in order for this to be comfortable, you need to absolutely let the shoulders go, let the hips go, let the ankles go. And actually, I've cheated a bit and taken my feet a tiny bit wider. Just makes it a tiny bit more comfortable. Good, and then coming forwards. And I can see in the monitor that I'm hiding my arm behind me. If anything, if I rotate a little bit more, you can see that arm coming out the side. That's what you're aiming for. So because you've opened up the shoulders, this arm should go behind you as opposed to getting stuck there. So really behind you, all the way forwards. Fantastic. And then we've got a loose bow and arrow. I'm just going to go slightly to the corner. From your hands reaching forwards, pulling one elbow back, one shoulder back, slide that arm along and across your chest, look behind you, and then bring it round to straight. So the elbow and the shoulder pull back, the other arm reaches forwards at the same time. As that hand goes underneath your chin, turn and look behind you. And in my room here, I'm going from corner to corner. If I was to face forwards, the hand is completely behind me, and then I'm coming back to the front. So the other hand stays in front. If anything, it reaches more forwards. I'm going to go to this corner for a change. That's just quite nice to have a bit of a change of scenery as you do it. So nice and loose. Opening up chest and shoulders, rotating around the spine. Great, let's have the feet wide again. Arms up to the ceiling. Take a big swing. Initially, so when these were very early on in my warm-ups, I tend to keep my head quite upright. I'm thinking of doing a nice deep squat. I'm thinking of compressing in the front of the hip, making sure the knees go over the toes. I don't go for too big a swing initially. And then once it all starts to feel comfortable, then I let the head relax. Hopefully, fingertips are brushing the floor. If you've got a mirror in front of you, you're looking for perfect symmetry. I'm looking for perfect symmetry when I'm in front of you in class, so no knees rolling in, no leaning over to one side more than the other, no shoulders twisted. Let everything relax. Let's add a rise and a balance to that. Nice and strong, all the way up on those toes. Strong ankles, lower the heels, go again. Straighten the legs first, then pitch the weight forwards, then come up. Once you're up there, draw those shoulders down. Pull the waist in. Let's have 3 more. Straight legs, rising and balancing. 2 more. If you want to really add even more of a challenge once you're up there, take a double arm circle twice, maybe. Heels down, coming up to the top. Double arm circle and Lost my balance on that one. Never mind. Okay, great. Let's keep the feet quite wide. Let's reach up. Trying to touch the ceiling. I nearly said sky then. I was doing my garden Pilates class this morning and kept saying ceiling, and now I'm in a room. I want to say sky. So both arms are up. Just pitch the weight forward so you can tap both heels. So that the weight is forwards on the balls of the feet, and allow the arms to drop down, allow the eye line to lower, but you've still got this wonderful length in the spine. Just gently reaching down, side to side. So this side bend is going to get bigger as we go through. Bring in the fingertips to the temples. This time thinking about the top elbow going up to the ceiling. Great, and now let's open the arms out and sweep them across. So nice flowing arms, really making sure you're getting that wonderful stretch down the side seam of your back. All of these movements which we don't do in everyday life, but which really make everyday life more comfortable when you've got this flexibility and you've gone to the edges of your ability, if you like. So let's have the hands at the back of the head. In fact, let's not have hands at the back, let's have fingertips to temples. I'm going to go slightly on an angle. So just taking a chest lift, come through a neutral, fold over for your abdominal curl. Neutral. Chest lift, or an upper back extension is another way to look at it. This is like the equivalent to doing an abdominal curl on the floor. I'm creating a crease at the back as I'm lifting my chest up. I'm not changing this. This isn't changing at all. I'm folding, creating a crease at the front. One more. Being very aware of my neutral position in between. Now I'm going to go back. I'm now going to take a crease, make a crease at the side of my ribs. I'm all the way around to the side. Then I'm taking that forwards one, then around to the other side, and then back. Try not to cut off that back part. Going round again in the opposite direction. Changing the position, changing the direction at the back so that you really focus on that part. So this can be done with the hands at the back of the head, fingertips interlaced, with the elbows maybe a little bit more forwards. But your goal, whichever version you're doing, is to keep the relationship between your arms and your head the same. So you're just mobilising all around those ribs, really good. Okay, we're going to take the feet nice and wide. I'm going to stand a bit of an angle. We're taking a sumo squat. So send the bottom back, focus on that crease at the front of the hips, maybe bring the arms forwards a little bit, make sure the weight is in the heels. So we're not dropping too low with the chest. In fact, it's only a hip hinge, a mini hip hinge. So let's just do a few of these first of all, keeping the legs straightish, slightly soft at the knees. Have your hands at the tops of your thighs. Take the little hip hinge. Check, nothing is changing. Maybe one hand in front, one hand in your lower back. Maybe one hand at the back of your neck. No shapes changing other than this one here. Then all you do is bend the knees and the ankles, drop the body down. I'm reaching my arms forwards as a counterbalance. Just trying to think what we would do. I was doing with one of my clients the other day, which really highlighted the difference with this one. Yeah, maybe let's pop your hands at the back of behind your back, behind your butt. Just hold your hands together and take your squat. So make sure that weight is in the heels. This is quite strong, quite grippy in the hip flexors, holding it down. Now bring your arms forwards. So the moment I brought my arms forwards from behind my back, I could feel my weight really nicely settle back into my heels. And now this feels much more balanced. This feels quite awkward, quite grippy in here, coming up again. Just try that a couple more times. So all the way down, reach your arms forwards, notice how that weight goes back into the heels. So I could actually tap both the fronts of my feet if I wanted to, both feet. And then place your hands behind your back, and notice how you have to shift forwards a little bit, otherwise it feels like you're going to fall forwards. Great, okay, let's take that movement on into mobilising the spine. So we're lifting the chest, looking up, arching the back, coming through our sumo squat. Fingertips in, elbows out. Relaxing the chest over the thighs, unravel from your hips, head is down last, and then strongly draw the belly button in, unravel through the spine all the way up to the top. Lift the chest, arch the back, flow through this. Try not to get stuck. And try not to be too rigid with any of the positions. Just let it go. Don't force it. Breathe. Think of the shape you're making with your spine as you do this. One more. Lift the chest, arch the back, and then round to come all the way up. Fantastic. We have just got a little bit of slow pony trots. So my pony trots, especially on a Monday, are always quite sort of, I don't want to be too prescriptive again with it. So just taking that rise up, lower through the heel, bend the knee, pop the toes. Whilst you're doing that, it's all going on, have a little twiddle with the toes. Maybe stay down in your knee bend and circle the foot at the ankle before you change over. Maybe do 2 or 3 circles. You'll like this one, especially in the comfort of your own home. Bearing in mind this is on video forever for me. We're going to take a sort of, like a, I don't know quite what this is, but a sort of weird and wonderful walk. And I'm just exploring hands, fingers, wrists circling, ankles circling, trying to go right up onto my toes, going through the heel, bending, yeah, slightly on. And whatever variation of that you were doing, that's perfect. Just own it and don't worry about it. Okay, let's take this into just some broken down rise and plie. So parallel with your feet, bending your knees. Keep that chest really upright. Raising the heel. So now we are being 100% prescriptive. Lift your body up, so you're fully straightening your legs, and then lower the heels. So bend the knees are over the toes, no change in the torso or the spine. Roll forwards onto the balls of your feet, come up nice and straight, and lower. And again, as you're doing this, try and feel the connection to your pubic bone, all the way, from your pubic bone even, all the way through to your big toe joint. Let's reverse the movement now. And what I'm thinking about as well is how my feet are weighted on the floor. So I'm very much aware of the edges of my feet, on both sides. So there's no rolling out or rolling in. Knees aren't collapsing. Everything is just drawing up towards this centre. So up nice and strong with those heels. Bend the knees. Push your heels down. I'm wincing a little bit because my rubbish Achilles. This is quite uncomfortable, but get those heels down if you can, and then straighten the legs to the top. Bend the knees, push the heels down, and straighten one more. So we're now being really, really accurate and straighten. Great. I'm going to take my feet slightly wider, starting with them parallel. I'm going to lift the heels and bring my legs into turnout, and lift the heels and release back to parallel. It's a bit sticky on this mat, but I'm going to go with it for the moment. It might make a few squelching noises, but lift your heels slightly, turn the whole leg out in the hip socket, try and turn them both out at the same time, get your heels together, and then release back to a parallel position. So this starting position is really important. If you're too close together, you've got nowhere to go. If you're too far apart, you won't get your heels together and nothing will really happen. So you just need to find where that perfect position is. Let's do one more. This time hold it there. So look down, make sure the legs are turned out equally. Try and adjust it from the tops of your thighs in the hip socket as opposed to just pinning the toes back or whatever. Make sure the legs are equal, heels squeezing together ideally, or the lower legs. If your knees are sort of vying for position a little bit, then let the heels be apart. So let's take that same movement that we just did. Nothing has changed in that upper body. You're bending your knees are still going over your toes. You raise the heels, exactly the same. You straighten the legs and then you lower through the heels. And again, 2 more in this direction. So we haven't changed anything in the alignment of the legs. We've just turned the whole leg out in the hip socket. I think that was my 3rd one. Up to the top, reversing it now. Knees are over the toes, you push those heels down and you straighten, feeling that connection to pelvic floor again. To the top, bend the knees, push the heels down and straighten. 1 more, bend the knees, push the heels down and straighten. Wonderful. Let's just hold that there a moment. See if you can keep the heels pretty much together, or at least the lower legs together. Try and lift the heels off the floor a little bit, holding it there. Let's just bring the arms out to the side. So and stay there if you can. So hopefully you should feel some work. Switching on pelvic floor, the gluteal fold, all of your deep lower abdominal, internal, small muscles which we don't really get to use very much. And then we're going to flex the hands. If you need to lower the heels, please do, but if you can, stay up. Taking the arms out to the side. Palms facing the sides of the room, staying up if you can, it's all a bit wobbly. And then we're going to rotate the arms in the shoulder socket so it feels like the elbows are on top. They're not actually on top, they're facing the wall behind me, and I've got this lovely shadow that someone pointed out on Saturday. And then from there, turn the wrists. So we're in perfect ballet arms now, as I call these. And then you're going to bring your arms forwards. So it's like you're hugging a tree. Elbows are on top, arms are nice and rounded, curved, like a tulip shape, and then open out again. And bring them together, and open out. Good job, and bring them together. Opening out, together, keep them in the same shape, lifting them up. Keep those heels lifted off if you can. Go through your middle position, lower them down, little fingers touching your thighs. Keep them in this rounded shape. Opposite your chest, lifting all the way up to the top. Is it me or is it suddenly extra hot today? Didn't think it was very hot earlier, but I'm starting to get much warmer. To the top, and then open back out to the side again. Let's lower those heels actually, but stay and turn out if you can. So I just want you to feel this action going on in your arms and in your shoulders. From this rounded position, you're going to keep the same shape. Just turn your palms down. This is quite awkward around your shoulders. You'll notice that your tips of your shoulders, the front of your shoulders, will tip forwards, and it feels like you end up like the honey monster. But try and keep the shoulders down, but at the same time maintaining that shape in the arms. Come back to the middle position, which is like a neutral position, and now drop the elbows down and take the palms up. But again, keep this lovely curved shape. And then you should really feel those shoulder blades drawing down in your back towards your hips. Neutral. Dropping down with the palms. Middle position, neutral position. Palms are up, elbows are down. And then from there, just draw your elbows in and lift the arm back again. And then let's come back to our neutral position. One more. Down with the palms. Elbows are up, try not to go too rounded, but just notice it happens, it's going to happen. So your middle position, your neutral, you're sort of putting your shoulder blades into gear, and now you're off. Everything is, engines on, everything is rocking and rolling here. Great, from that position, draw those elbows into your sides, and lifting back out. And then just let those arms hang, release those heels and give the legs a bit of a shake. Great, okay. Brilliant. Let's do some Narrow squats. In fact, let's start with a hip hinge first of all. So hip width apart, I've just gone slightly on the corner so that you can see. We're just sending that bottom back again. So this is the shutting the door behind you. Think of your tissue box. That tissue box is going to come into play a little bit in a minute. So let's add on to the mini hip hinge. So it's a mini hip hinge because we're not going very far, the legs are quite close together. Just bending the knees, taking the weight back through to those heels, reaching the arms forwards a little bit, the difference between there and there again, into a narrow squat, and coming up, and a narrow squat, coming up. So no stress on the back, hinge at the hip, holding there, bringing the arms up, so there's a bit more shoulder work, so that they're parallel to the floor, staying here if you can. From here, you're going to try and lift the arms up a little bit higher, from parallel to the floor, but without any change. They don't really go very far. Try and keep them quite straight. There's a lot of stress in that hip joint at the front. Absolutely fine. Try not to poke your head forwards. Keep the back of the neck long. Chin tucked in. My eye line is forwards and down. Not looking up here. Got that back of the neck long. No wrinkles there. Great. If you can, let's lift one arm up. Maybe it'll go a little bit higher, maybe not. And the other arm down. So backstroke arms, palms stay continuing to face down. Try not to lift the lower arm too high. Just reach the side of your hip, the side seam of your torso, and pause there. If you can, see if you can get the other arm up a little bit higher. No twisting or distorting in that body. It's a tissue box. It can't twist and distort. 4 more. 3, 2, and 1, and whoo, coming up. Some strong work going on there in those hips. That's great. Okay, continuing to work on those hips. I'm going to go to this side. We're going to take a knee fold. We're standing on one leg. So taking a knee fold, and then, so ideally straightening your standing leg when you take this knee fold, thinking of your tissue box, bending the standing leg and taking the moving leg back so that you end up in a diagonal line. So that's the basic version. So maybe hands on your hips, elbows out to the side, knee fold, straight standing leg. Flex the foot maybe if you want to add some footwork as well as you take that leg back. So you've taken a hip hinge and a bending of your standing leg. Coming through, pointed foot, and sweep the leg through. You don't have to have the leg in the air. You could just have that toe on the floor, but you need to be in a good diagonal line. Don't be here. Don't be hips sticking out with that toe touching the floor. So bend that standing leg. Here we go. So lifting up, sweeping through. This is going to be really strong and tough on that standing leg. Try and be really accurate with whether it's straight or whether it's bent. Obviously we're also looking for good alignment. Think about your tissue box. That tissue box is just tipping forwards and backwards, or upright really, upright and then tipping forwards as you go over that leg. Oh, it's quite strong. Okay, I'm going to hold that leg at the back. I'm going to take my arms up by my ears if you can. You could keep your hands on your hips, you could maybe take your arms out to the side. Hardest position, arms up by the ears. I'm going to stay in this position on this wonderful diagonal line. I'm going to lift and lower that back leg. Keeping it straight, keeping the hips still. Whoo, standing leg is screaming. Another 5, 4, 3, 2, going to do one more exercise, but I think I'm too fatigued to show it properly, so I'm going to pass on that. I'm going to go to the other side, just turning on the other diagonal. Give that leg a bit of a shake. We'll try and stretch that out a little bit later. Okay, so this one shouldn't be too, shouldn't affect the exercise now, because we're going to be all focusing on the other leg. So, lifting up into a knee fold, pointed foot. Swing the leg back, flex the foot, bend your standing leg. So all that lovely work we did where we were rising and bending the knees in perfect alignment should still be happening now on that standing leg. Knees, ankles, all in line, opposite the hip. The only thing that's changing here as far as your tissue box is concerned is this hip hinge over that standing leg. The sides of your waist are staying the same. Remember, you don't have to have the leg out up in the back, up at the back. You can have the foot down, but don't stick your bottom out. You've got to bend that standing leg a little bit more in order to achieve that. Everyone should be able to have a straight leg and a knee fold here. You can maybe tap the floor in between. Okay, this is feeling quite strong now. So watch when you start to get tired, which is why I didn't add on the third exercise here, because the third exercise was quite subtle as well. But when you start to get tired, your technique will go out the window and you will start to cheat. So let's hold that there. So if it really starts to get wobbly and everything's all over the place, just stop. Try and come back to it another time. So arms up by the ears if you can. Create that wonderful diagonal line. Lifting and lowering that back leg only. Hopefully, standing side leg should really be working. And this is such good functional stuff as well, people. This is the stuff that's going to help you be strong standing on one leg, moving the other leg, having your spine its natural curve. Let's go to the last 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, hand. Ha ha. Woo, okay. Give those arms. No, give those legs a little bit of a shake. Arms, give them a little bit of a shake as well. Okay, great. Let's go. We're going to come down to the floor. So we're going to, I'm going to move the monitors and we're going to start our stretches in the middle of the mat. Then we're going to come down to the floor and be on all fours. So when I've moved the monitors, we'll come back to this position in the middle of your mat facing forwards. Great, okay. So in the middle of your mat, feet nice and wide, insteps parallel. Let's just take a good old hip hinge. So this is a large hip hinge, a wide leg hip hinge, in order to stretch the backs of your legs. First one of the day for me, and then maybe coming up again. Let's place the hands on the shoulders, just to heighten your awareness of the position of the shoulders. Whew, holding that there, keeping the chin tucked in, back of the neck nice and long, no wrinkles there. Let's circle the elbows. Golf ball size circle at your elbows, change direction. Make sure the weight is pitched forwards. If you're not feeling much of a hamstring stretch, tilt your pelvis a little bit more. Maybe lift the chest slightly. Don't just collapse lower with your back. Great, let's bend the knees and relax your upper body down to the floor. itsy bitsy spider, your fingertips forwards, legs are bent, you're staying quite low. Just going to gently transfer my weight from foot to foot, side to side, a little bit. Stretching out my spine, but also lengthening the spine forwards. And then I'm going to bring my hands back underneath my shoulders, straightening the legs. Yeah, I'm just lifting my head up to check my hips, although my shadow on the wall says slightly differently. That might just be the angle of the light. So from here, oh yeah, look at that. So I think I was better okay at the beginning. So this is what I'm looking at. Hips, the top of both hips, the top edge of your pelvis being absolutely level. And then with those legs staying straight, dropping. One hip down, the other one will naturally lift up. So I call this seesaw hips. The focus is just to drop down and lift up. I'm not keeping them on the same level and shortening at my waist. It's a real side to side movement. It's quite strong in the inside thighs, it's quite hard work. Great, then let's bend the knees and take the feet out, turn the legs out in the hips to the corners a little bit, 5 minutes to 5 minutes past. Keep your hands underneath your shoulders, and now let's bend one knee at a time, keeping the hips at the same height if you can and going from side to side. I feel like we haven't done these for ages, I don't know why. Maybe it's because I redid my stretches video and there was lots of this work in there, so I feel like I haven't done it in class for a little while. And then we're going to turn all the way around to one side. Place the opposite hand to the foot on the mat, and then lift the back arm, so you're turning away from the camera, up towards the ceiling, keeping that back leg straight if you can, and the hips drop down. Then come round to face the camera, bend your supporting arm and just thread the needle through. And then up again, try and touch the ceiling, maybe open out a little bit more than 180 degrees. Bend the arm, flowing all the way through. One more of those. You could have that back knee down if you needed to. Last one through. Great, then we're going to twiddle round to the other side, moving hips, knees, ankles, toes. Just get it all into good, strong alignment. Opposite hand next to the foot. Your feet should already be in the perfect position. We're opening up, trying to touch the ceiling but dropping those hips down. It's actually quite a nice stretch out in those glutes that we just worked. Bend your arm a little bit, try and reach through to the opposite corner of the room and lifting up. Maybe open out those shoulders a tiny bit more and reach through and lift up and reach through and fantastic. Come back to face forwards. And then let's come down onto all fours. Brilliant. I'm going to put my mat at a bit of a jaunty angle. And we're going to start in all fours. All fours, lifting the knees off initially, extending out into the plank. And then we're going to let just one knee dangle. So just watch me a moment. From the perfect all fours position, this could be done without doing the plank section. So if you can, lifting the knees off, holding that there, and then we're going to lift the knees off, you're going to straighten out into the plank, straighten out the other leg into the plank. The body's in the perfect position, and then from that plank position, you're going to let that one knee drop down to the floor, so it's directly underneath your hip, and you're circling. About 5 in each direction. This is really tough. And then swapping to the other side. An alternative is, from all fours, just release the knee and circle it round. Not as difficult. Okay, here we go. So take the leg closest to the camera, first of all away, maybe. So curl those toes under, lift the knees off, hold that there. So basic position, one of the 10 things to do every day, fantastic exercise. for keeping the body in the right position, for strengthening that core. Back of the head and neck is lifted. You're working on the endurance of the deep neck flexors. You're strengthening hands, wrists. It's all going on. If you can, from there, take a break if you need to, but if you can, straighten your legs out. In fact, let's bring our feet closer together than I did. I think that'll make it slightly easier. And then we're going to bring the leg that's closest to the camera, just let it dangle underneath your hip. So this is me collapsed onto it. Try not to collapse. Let it dangle, circle. The other leg is working really hard. Both hips are working hard to stabilise. At least 5 in each direction. Oh, that's my second time on that leg. I'm going to swap sides. So let the knee brush the floor, but don't have any weight on it. Hips stay still. From side to side, also from lifting, lowering. Whoo! And draw the knee in, draw the other knee in, hover if you can, and then lower. That's quite hard work. Toes together, knees nice and wide. Let's just stretch those arms forwards. Take your sway from side to side. Woo, circling the wrists. We are going to do that one more time, just because. So if you're really not up for that, you could just be here, and you could just maybe take one. You could do from the all fours to come out into a plank, come back in, maybe do some of those. Keep alternating the leading leg. Otherwise, curl those toes under, lift the knees off, and straighten, feet quite close together. Start with your other leg. Check that plank position. Let that knee hover. Imagine your knee is a pencil. You're drawing a circle which is directly underneath your hip bone. 5 in each direction. Try and let the foot relax. It's a weird one. And swap legs. Don't let the hip drop. 5 or so in each direction. Straighten out the leg. Bring one leg in. Bring the other leg back in. Lower those knees. Oh, and give yourselves a well-earned little hug and a twiddle of the wrist there. Great job. Okay, brilliant. We're coming on to our backs. Quite a tough section on your backs today for the abdominals. It's a cumulatively tough one. So we are going to be in your base position. So for the first round, use the leg for the first exercise. We're going to stay on one side. So use the leg that's closest to the screen, closest to the camera, so that you can see what's going on, because when we turn to the other side, you might not be able to see as clearly. So we're just going to do 6 of each movement, but I would like you to try and be nice and accurate with it. So from your base position, your spine settled, we're going to lift one leg into the perfect knee fold, knee directly above the hip, with a beautiful pointed foot, and lower down. Another 5 of those, 6 of each movement. Check that your hips aren't moving. Check that your lower back isn't changing shape. Check that your rib cage is nice and relaxed. 2 more, I think. I'm very good at counting this one. Great, so that's the easiest part of this. That's a piece of cake. Apart from just being really accurate, use it to check everything. Adding on, so this is going to carry on doing the same work. So that leg's doing a knee fold, and then the other leg is going to slide along the floor, and you're going to flex that foot. And then bring both legs back in at the same time. Knee fold, leg slide. Pointed foot, flexed foot. Come back in. Maybe elbows on the floor, hands on your hips to check there's no change here. Coming back in. I have no idea how many we've done. Let's do one more of these. Great. Guess what? We're going to add on. We're going to add on a lovely abdominal curl. Hands at the back of the head. Elbows forwards. Think of lifting your armpit, not your elbows, not your head. Think of lifting and curling your armpit off of the floor. So Knee fold, leg slide and abdominal curl all at the same time, not one after the other. Here we go. So you're coming up, nice big breath out and lower. And again. 4 more. Pointed foot on the knee fold, flexed foot on the leg slide. Armpits reaching forwards. Head staying still. I think this is the last one. We're adding on. As you come up into the knee fold, leg slide, extend that lower leg. It doesn't have to be 90 degrees if that's uncomfortable. It can be 45 degrees. Still a pointed foot, still a flexed foot, still clearing the shoulder blades. And come back down. Knee fold, leg slide, leg extension, abdominal curl. It is all going on. We've got 3 more. 2 more. Think of your pelvis. Notice whether it's equally weighted. Hopefully it is. Last one. Pointed foot, flexed foot. Check it all out. Clear the shoulder blades. Great. Last version, you'll be glad to know. Knee fold, leg extension, leg slide. Turn your opposite armpit towards that knee that's in the air. Hold that position. Think armpit, not elbow. Lower with a flexed foot, lift up with a pointed foot. Lift and lower that leg. Push the straight leg, push that heel into the floor a little bit. 3 more, staying rotated. Staying rotated, we're nearly there. Flex the foot, point the foot, last one. Flex the foot, point the foot, bring everything in and have a little collapse. Woo. Maybe turning the head from side to side. Good, hurrah, all of that on the other side. Here we go. So using the leg that's furthest away from the camera, this is the easy peasy bit. Enjoy the beauty of just the knee fold, but be accurate with it. Check with your fingertips. Are the hips moving? They shouldn't be. Check with your fingertips. Is that lower back shape changing? Hopefully not. Check your ribs. Check your shoulders. Are you really properly pointing that foot, or are you just paying lip service to it? Just maybe extending the ankle a little bit. Curl all those toes round. I think that's 6, but let's do 1 more for good measure. Good. And now adding on the leg slide along the floor, flexing that foot. And bring the legs back in at the same time. Try not to lift that leg off the floor, the one that's sliding away, because that would be a different exercise, a much harder exercise. That would be too challenging for your pelvis. But do keep it in contact and keep it slightly lifted, especially when you draw it back in. So you have to stay switched on in your centre so that you don't ruck your mat up. So don't just leave the leg to be heavy. Pointed foot, flexed foot, hips stable. We're adding on, hands at the back of the head. We've got our abdominal curl. Now think about your abdominal curl. Clear those shoulder blades. All the bits that you've already been checking for should be the same. We're just making it harder. There's more going on. There's more coordination. It's the coordination that usually gets everyone as opposed to the actual exercise. I think this is the last one. Great, we're adding that leg extension on the knee fold side. Knee fold, leg extension, flex foot, pointed foot at the top, shoulder blades cleared, it's all going on. And lower, no time to relax, go again. And extend. And release. 4 more. So I haven't taken that straight leg to 90 degrees because that would be tempting to tuck my lower back under. I want to keep it nice and neutral. Lost count. Let's take 2 more here. Last one. Let's stay up this time. Keep that underneath foot, leg slide foot flexed, top foot pointed. Twist your armpit towards that knee. But try not to let the other shoulder blade, the one that's at the back, try not to let that touch the floor. Hold your upper body there, fully rotated, flex the foot when you lower. Point the leg when you lift. Flex to lower, point to lift. Push that other heel down into the floor or the back of your calf. Keep your pelvis stable. 2 more, nearly done. And lift, flex, and lift. Bend those knees in, and relax. Good job. Let those legs drop a little bit from side to side. Brilliant. We are coming onto our sides. So I'm just going to straighten my mat up a little bit. I'm going to go this side. So elbow underneath your shoulders. Knees are stacked, hips are stacked. Yeah, just take the top leg away and just flex the foot, but keep it quite relaxed so you're resting on the side of that foot. Let this underneath side, especially your rib cage, let your rib cage drop all the way down. So this shoulder sort of comes up to meet your ear and then lift out of the floor. Let it drop down and lift out of the floor. Good, so I just want you to feel that work in that underneath and the side of your back, sort of underneath the arm, the side seam of your torso, in your lats. Great, hold that there. Now I want you to flex that foot, keep this arm on this side, maybe just draw that elbow in a little bit more closer to your side because it tends to get out there and that's much stronger tougher on the shoulder. Then we're just lifting the hips up into a straight line and lowering but only to hover. Lift and lower with a hover. Lift and lower with a hover. Really think of working this underneath edge of your side of your body and also the side seam, as I just said. It looks in the camera because the camera's pointing down a little bit that I'm tilted, but I'm absolutely not. Shoulders are stacked, hips are stacked, and I'm really lifting my body up sideways. It doesn't come up very far. Let's hold those hips up there. Take the arm up to the ceiling. In fact, let's have this hand at the back of the head. So think of that elbow lifting up. It sort of opens up the chest a little more. Point that top foot. Lift and lower that leg. Here we go. Woo. Strong work. We've already worked those glutes quite a bit today. I think we deserve a little glute stretch when we finish this one. Lifting and lowering. If you've got it there, staying up, pulses. Let's flex that foot. Pulse, pulse, pulse. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I feel like I was going to collapse on that shoulder then. Brilliant work. Okay, all the way around to the other side. So, bring this elbow in, make sure it's underneath your shoulder. Initially, feet on top of each other, knees on top of each other, hips are stacked. Then just extend that top leg. It's a little bit cramped, but we'll stretch that out underneath afterwards. Let your rib cage collapse down so that you end up with this shoulder practically touching your ear, and then really lift up. Drop down and really lift up. Feel like you're resisting the floor here. Hopefully, it's not easy, but it shouldn't be painful or anything. If you've got a bad shoulder, this is actually a really good thing to do. So lifting up. Last one, let's hold that up. So keep the collarbone nice and open. Lifting the hips up, your body's in a straight line, keep that foot flexed, and when lifting the hips up into your side bridge straight line, maybe just tuck this elbow in a little bit more. So we're staying lifted on this underneath side, we're just adding the hips to the lift now. So really important to work the back and the sides of the body. Great, let's hold those hips up. Let's take that hand at the back of the head, really lift that elbow up towards the ceiling. pointing that top foot and lifting and lowering. Not so high that this top hip drops back. No turning out of the leg, so no, keep your knee facing forwards, top of your foot facing forwards. Stay lifted out of that shoulder, that elbow, the floor, the mat. Good job. We're going to hold that leg up. We're going to flex the foot. We're going to pulse 12 times. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hand. Oh, yeah. Oh, brilliant. Okay. Good job. Let's come on to all fours. Sideways on and just take some nice shoulder rolls there. Shoulder rolls and or spine circles. Let's do both actually. So spine circles, taking your ribs around, down, up and back and changing direction. Great. Okay, fantastic. Well done. Let's come on to our tummies. Again, I'm going to just pop the mat a bit more a jaunty angle. So we are going to place arms out to the side, open up the legs to hip width apart. Just push your pubic bone into the mat a little bit. Make sure you connect the rib cage to the hips. Put the forehead on the back of your hands if you can, on the back of your fingertips. And the first movement is just to lift. And this is really quite strong. I say just to lift. This is strong. So if that's too much for you to lift the arms and the head and the shoulders all up at the same time, maybe just lift the head on its own. It is really quite strong to do the arms as well. That extra weight. Just a couple more of those. Great, keep the head relaxed. Bend the knees, flex the feet. Now I really struggle with this in the sense that as soon as I bend my knees in, my hips ping off the floor, the front of my hips ping off the floor, because I'm tight in the front of my hips. So this is a really good exercise for me to do, to push my pubic bone into the mat a little bit, take a pelvic tilt almost. I'm trying to keep my heels squeezing together, my legs are slightly turned out, and you're just going to squeeze the heels together and lift thighs and knees off of the floor. Try not to let your pelvis be tilting. And again, quite strong work. Good. Squeeze those heels together. Brilliant. The grand finale of this, if you're feeling strong, in fact, no, let's not do that. I think it's too much. Just decided it's too much. Let's reach the arms out and let's stretch the legs away. And just hold your upper back up a little bit. So just lift the chest off the floor. So you've got your bottom 3 or 4 ribs on the floor. Let's turn the thumbs up and have the little finger side pushing down into the floor slightly and almost pulling back a little bit. So you're setting those shoulder blades down in your back. Now you really do need to push your pubic bone into the mat, otherwise you're going to feel like you're overarched in that lower back. So send your tailbone away a little bit. And then just free up the legs to be able to switch and switch and switch. So trying to move the leg from the hip, so no bending at the knees. Try and move the whole leg, holding that upper body up. And relaxing, collapsing, forehead on your hands. Brilliant work, everyone. Come up onto all fours again. So let's stretch all the way back with that chest and going from side to side. So knees are far apart, toes are together, if you can. If that's an issue with you because of your flexibility in your knees and you can come to here, then great. Go as far back as you can with those hips, but nice and equally. And again, have the weight through your elbows and just swap from side to side. Try and do whatever you can. If you can, let's walk the hands round. So you're as far back as you can. Walk the hands round, just the hands and the arms round towards the screen until you feel a very stretchy, burning stretchy sensation, burning sensation down the side seam of your torso where we've worked a lot today, at the back, away from the camera, and breathe. Then see if you can just lift and lower that upper back. So I'd call that a back pop. You're lifting and lowering. Breathe. Don't get stuck. If it's too uncomfortable, don't do it. Ease off the stretch a little bit. Walk your hands back to the centre. Walk them round to the other side. So I haven't moved hips, I haven't moved legs. I'm just going as far as I can until I get that stretch in that side seam. Holding it there. And breathe. Lift and lower. Lift and lower. Pop the back a little bit. Fantastic. Let's come all the way forwards. Just finishing off with a nice hip stretch. So I'm going to use the length of my mat to come into this sort of figure of four position, not figure of four position, like a Z sit. So this front leg is going across the short end of the mat, that shin's going down the back edge. I'm going to bring the foot in a little bit and just, in fact, just going to stretch that leg out behind me and then come down onto my elbows. And if you're not really feeling much now, come over onto that thigh and straighten out that back leg. So as always, using the yoga mat as a bit of a measure here, and then if you can, roll over that hip joint. Brilliant. Bringing that back leg all the way around. So here's an alternative, just in case that one really wasn't going to be suitable for you. Cross the ankle over, sitting back. So this is relatively comfortable for me here. I'm going to lift my chest up. So you might even be just here, and that might be giving you enough of a stretch. If you're just here and you want to increase the stretch, bend that knee a little bit. If you can, bend the knee a lot, and now really try and sit upright and almost hinge forwards towards that leg, and that should be quite strong. Making sure that this knee is opposite your hip, not across your midline. Last one, tucking that underneath leg here, so we're still stretching the same side, crossing the foot over. This is not one of my favourite stretches, but it's very effective. So sitting up nice and tall if you can. So a seated rotation is a good one to do anyway. I'm going to take the opposite hand to that knee, the other hand behind my spine, sit really upright and rotate around, trying to look over my shoulder. So I'm pulling that knee across, getting a nice stretch on the outside, coming back to face forwards, and then reaching, leaning forwards and over. In fact, I think that foot should be a little bit more across, yes. Woo. Wonderful. Okay, let's try all of those on the other side. I'm trying to think what the first one was. Oh yeah, the Z sit. I'm going to stay here. So other leg in front, and the back leg is going along the length of the mat. Pitching forwards, you might find that this is enough. Keep your shoulders fairly square. Open out that other leg behind you. So I'm getting a reasonable stretch here, not an amazing stretch. So I'm able to come onto my knee and my shin and straighten the leg out behind me. Again, using the yoga mat as my measure. And then once you're there, shifting forwards and backwards, or just generally wiggling about within the stretch. If you're really not feeling this one either, you could bring that foot, that front foot more forwards so that your knee is more opened out. Then it becomes a bit more like the next one that we're about to do. And breathing. Bring the back leg round. That's going to be your anchor now for this next stretch. So leaning back a little bit, but not collapsing. Lift the chest, bend that knee in, see how far you can go. So this is my tighter side on my hip, so that's already quite a strong stretch. The foot that's across your knee, try and flex the foot, so you're just making that joint nice and strong. Ooh, I've bent the leg in a little bit more. I'm trying to really lift up, pushing that knee out to the side, using my muscles, not allowing this knee to roll in. Oh, that's quite strong. Brilliant. And then facing forwards. And again, this is going to be really quite uncomfortable for me now. So I've tucked that underneath leg in. Sitting up nice and tall. So this is a great one. Ideally, both sit bones should be on the mat. Equally, mine aren't, but I'm lifted. I'm getting a stretch here on this outside thigh. Opposite hand to that knee, other hand behind your spine. Use it to help lift you up and rotate around. And breathe. So seated spinal rotation, one of our 10 things to do every day. Plus we're getting the double whammy of stretching the hips at the same time. Coming forwards, and then just release over that front leg. Maybe change the position of this foot. I'm really not, oh yes, that's a bit better. When I say it's better, it's yeah, feeling that one a bit more. Shoulders are level, and breathe.